the intros and everything. First off, hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Josh Vogt. I'm the publisher of Personal Fitness Professional. In just a few minutes, our presenters today, Matt Wright, Clint Gady, Zolthat, and Derek Shanahan from the Exer team, will bring you today's webinar titled Trends and Tips for Hybrid Fitness Businesses, Crafting a Virtual Offering that will set you apart from your competition. Before we begin, I would like to cover a couple housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded and will be shared with all of you once a replay link is available. Normally within 24 hours, we will be sending out an email. Also, we'd like to encourage any questions you might have about the presentation and during the presentation, and you can submit those during the webinar using the Q&A button in the navigation bar. At the end of the presentation, we will then open it up to Q&A. If you have any other concerns or any other problems you're experiencing during the webinar, please use the chat and one of us will try to address those for you. With that taken care of, today's presenters are, first we have Matt Wright. Matt is a partner of the Ford Athletic Club in Oceanport, New Jersey. Matt has spent 10 plus years in fitness leadership with an emphasis on member engagement, programmatic solutions for personal and group training, staff education and retention, and team culture. Matt is an international presenter and educator. I'm sure many of you may have seen him speak. He's a member of Idea World Personal Trainer Committee and former president of NERSA. He holds a master's degree in sports and exercise psychology and is a certified exercise physiologist. Clint is the founder and head coach, or co-founder and head coach of Exer, utilizing his 20 plus years of experience in fitness and kinesiology to bring these products to fruition. With many international certifications under his belt, he co-founded E3 Fitness, a set of Denver-based gyms. Clint continues to dedicate much of his time to private personal coaching for professional athletes of the MLS, PGA, and NFL. Zaw is the CEO and co-founder of Exer, on a mission to help millions of people move, train, and play better using the power of AI. Zaw is a veteran entrepreneur investor who has been at the forefront of new technology and starting companies since the age of 19. Zaw was a founding partner of Signia in 2012. Zaw was the founder and CEO of 4Info, one of the first and largest mobile advertising platforms in the world. Business Week recognized him as one of the mobile barons, helping to shape the mobile ad industry since 2004. And then Derek is Exer's VP of Growth and leads go-to-market efforts for its studio product. He got his start in software and a co-founder of Foodtree, a food tech startup eventually acquired by Mobify, now Salesforce, which many of us are familiar with. He then led growth at Super Rewards, a payment startup, until their acquisition by PerkNow, now publicly listed as Tremor International. Matt, Clint, Zaw, and Derek, take it away.
All right, thanks, Josh. We are going to start off with a poll. Learn a little bit about who you guys are. So if you could, I think Josh is going to launch the poll. Give us a little bit of insight if you're running virtual fitness sessions, how frequently you're doing so. I think the poll just hit. And with that, I am going to kind of set the stage. I'm going to the goal being to give you guys a sense of what we're talking about today. And that is, what is a hybrid fitness business? Our thinking is that our vision of the future is that the world is hybrid. And today we're going to talk about the advantages of that, right? We're going to walk through solutions. We're going to talk about these guys' perspective on the industry. But when we're talking about hybrid businesses, what we're talking about is the fact that fitness businesses can be location independent. And what we think that that presents as an opportunity is a global reach. We'll probably be saying omnichannel a bit. What we mean by that is really that software, technology, and virtual give us the opportunity to reach customers where they are, right? So the touch points between you and your customers is now a pretty wide array of touch points, and we'll be discussing a little bit about that. And then we'll be talking about the holistic customer experience. So, what is the customer experience when it isn't just in person, when it does include all of these various touch points and opportunities to interact, add value, and provide insight. So those are the things we're going to discuss today. I'm going to hand it at first, I'm going to hand it to Clint to talk a little bit about what, in some ways what led to founding Xer, but having talked to coaches for 20 years plus, maybe Clint can share a little bit about what he has heard.
Yeah, thanks, Derek, and welcome everybody. Thanks for coming in. So my own housekeeping, dealing with a little bit of some food poisoning. So if I get off screen, I promise I'll be back. I'm passionate about this stuff, so this is pretty important to me. So
please make sure to mute yourself if you go off screen. Thanks.
Thank you, Zaw. Yeah, Maddie writes my backup cue for this one. So yeah, this is an important slide, and I want to add some context. And this is a smart audience. I'm sure you guys can all read it. So I want to go back in history and provide some context of where this came from. So I started my journey 20 years ago as a fit pro, and trying to give our members and clients more with less time. I mean, I think that's all of us, whether you're a trainer, fit pro, you're a club operator. I think that was all of our missions and still is. Xer started 3 years ago, and what's on this slide is what was coming about as we went into deep R&D. And when I say that, what does that even mean? Zaw and I went on a mission. Zaw, I think we pulled like roughly 5,000 fit pros at one point is what we pulled, and we went to ideas, we went to the URSAs, the club industries. I went to Matt's presentations almost at all three of those events, actually pretty sure all three of those events, and listened to him. Matt introduced us to a lot of people where we got to talk and get feedback. And what we were trying to talk and get feedback on was this digital aspect of the brick and mortar fitness to virtual arm. We'll get into that later. Omnichannel, all these keywords that you hear getting dropped. And the reality to all this was pre-COVID, by the way. Well, this is 3 years ago. And the reality to all this was what I was personally feeling as I tried to, being a brick and mortar and a coach, to go into this virtual world. This is really freaking hard. It is hard to do this virtual option. And there's two pieces on this slide that I want to point to. The first is that depth of communal feel. I've always been extremely conscious of bringing a community in and around any fitness offering that I'm involved with or our team was involved with. And that's also Xer. And I had the ability and to watch this magic occur with what Josh had mentioned previously with E3, where we specialize in small group. What we did there is we started with a community of about 30 people, and we moved it to a community of 500. And it was amazing to see. And there was this loop that kept coming back as far as a question that kept coming back into my mind, which was, how can we keep our clients, members more involved? Obviously dealing with LTV or lifetime value of that member, which goes right to direct retention, right? I think anyone would think that, whether it's you're a one-on-one trainer, independent contractor, or you're an operator, doesn't matter. It's all that same. And every move we made had to tie into that. But also, how can we get our members to communicate with other members more organically, which you all know here that's how we drive growth. I mean, there's a huge percentage of the clubs, no matter how big or small, or just trainers, that the communities grow from that organic member to member or client to client conversation. So with that in mind, I believe that same question or those questions are relevant when we talk about adding a digital option to our businesses. And you've heard it, Derek mentioned it before, the omni-channel, the virtual arm, the hybridization. I can barely even say that. And not against this word. I'm not, against wordplay and all that fun stuff, but I just don't get stuck in it. So let's not spin this into something that's difficult and more difficult rather than what it has to be. Let's keep it just relatable to the club experience and what experiences are. So another issue I want to point out real quick. Can you go back to that other slide real quick, D? Thank you. It was just that give feedback to clients virtually. That experience right there, that was another issue to do in real time. And it's exhausting. And I'll tell you what, I'll admit it right now, a little vulnerability. I'm a sensitive dude, and I know Zaw and Matt are gonna laugh, and Derek, you whatever. I'm very sensitive, and when you come into a session with me or you go into my brick and mortar and you leave, I wanna know that you had a good time, that it felt good, and you had a positive interaction with us. So I don't just subscribe to the notion that your virtual offering has to compare to the brick and mortar offering, but it does need to be organized, thoughtful, and it needs to have minimal friction, if you will. And then D, you can jump to that other side. That'd be great. Yeah. Thank you, man. So with that, I'm just going to go right after this one, and that human touch. So let me back up. So what is possible now in this virtual world for us, for our Fit Pros? Okay, that human touch needs to be an interactive experience, which when we're referencing this virtual setting. Okay, so that's huge. And at Xer, how we do it is we use real artificial intelligence to give real-time, visually engaging feedback to enhance and to achieve a sense of accomplishment for that member. This comes in the framework of tools, like for instance, high-fiving other members, getting in chats, pushing them. The coach, my ability to high-five that member, to give them an experience and for them to interact. And then the magic of it is some form of summary. When I hit end on a session, that member has something sitting in their inbox waiting for them to read and digest in the form of data in a point system that is a cumulative score to the exertion or whatever it was that session I did that day. So then I can use it as a coaching tool to save time for myself or the operator, right? Or both. And that's a huge win-win. So if you're using any biometrics currently, then those are your data points. I'm just simulating the process for you right now. But pick what you're comfortable with. Don't be pigeonholed into what technology tells you to do. Pick what you're comfortable with and own that experience. So that's a big thing that I've learned throughout this process, is that if I stay where I'm comfortable as far as the tech and I can explain that experience, I'm going to acknowledge that that person was there, which is what they want in the virtual setting, and giving them that acknowledgement builds that trust. You become the resource for them both in the brick and mortar, but also in that virtual setting. So this all leads to the fact that virtual workouts actually can be fun. Yes, I did say that, both in that on demand and in that live, in that live arena. So last bit is I want to try to kind of paint or illustrate something for you. Fit Pros have an opportunity to be a source to interpret all of the data that either they are collecting or we as brick and mortar operators are collecting. Technology is going to keep dumping data on us, and dump and dump and dump, and it's going to keep coming. But you can pick, and the consumer can pick what they want to really breathe in and operate from, and you can help guide them along in their journey. So let me just explain this. And I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but let me explain this process. There's this beautiful gym being built right now. It's called the Fort. Matty Wright is one of the partners in this. And he has this beautiful program within this program called Earn Your Stripes, right? Some good high intensity work. And Tuesday, Thursdays are the days that I go in, I sign up on my phone, and I go ahead and I do this. But I'm also a subscriber to things like, I'm going to be, again, opening it up here, Oura Ring. I got an Apple Watch. I got a Breather Fit Pro, which looks like some type of illegal device maybe. I got a MyZone. I got a Strava app over here because I'm in Colorado and I love the mountain bike and I love the hike and I want to know how far I went, my metrics and how I measured up. And I love all this data. Not everyone does, right? But most people love the data that's contributing to the wellness aspect, but they don't know how to interpret it. That's where new revenue streams are going to start opening up for us. And so I go into Earn Your Stripes. And I did Earn Your Stripes on Tuesday. It's now Thursday, but in between then, I did a 4-mile mountain bike ride. I crushed a leg workout, and I come in and I signed up. And Matt had 3 little questions on his questionnaire when I signed up on the app that day, which was, how do I feel? What are my stress levels? And how to sleep, right? And I put that in there. And he didn't maybe like the answer so much, so he dug in a little deeper and finally he's like, dude. Clint walks in, puts his arm around me, and he's like, I know you're here for Earn Your Stripes today, Clint, but guess what? You look like shit. You need to go that way and go get some recovery. Now, he wouldn't say it like that, of course, but he's using this data to now meet me where I'm at. And it's that trusted relationship I talked about earlier. And it's an amazing experience that we're starting to see work in the industry. So this is where I'm most excited about, because this is where virtual and that brick and mortar experience start to complement one another and cross over. So virtual does not have to be the same, better or compared to that in-person experience. It's not what I'm saying. They're a complement that can make that whole experience better. So those are the points I want to kick off with. And I think there's some tools and there's some solutions that are left on the table. So Derek, I'm going to kick it back to you, which I believe you can kick it over to Maddie and kind of fill in some of those blanks from someone that's, boots on the ground.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks. I feel like that's a really good kind of overview of that holistic customer experience, right? So like the complete sort of connection between the professional and the consumer. We're gonna drop you guys another poll real quick. So if you can let us know kind of what types of sessions you're running. that'll give us a little bit of insight as we move forward and get a sense for kind of what you guys are doing. And with that, we're going to move in, talk to Matt. On some level, we just want to kind of hear what Matt's seeing out there. He is definitely boots on the ground. And we thought we'd start with kind of what does the profession look like, in the future? We've obviously, on some levels, we're in a new future. So Matt, why don't you give us a little bit of insight of what you see out there?
No, I appreciate it, T. Just to kind of add a little bit of layers to my background and story, because I think it's going to help connect and relate to the audience. But I mean, through and through, just like Clint on here, we identify as personal trainers, as fitness pros, like whatever you want to call it. Although now I've found myself to be a part owner of a facility, somebody who, gets to educate and speak globally, whatever it is. I mean, I'm still a trainer. I started my career as a personal trainer at a sports performance training center. From there, I entered into the world of management. That's when I ended up doing my master's degree. From my master's, I ended up becoming an adjunct professor. From there, I ended up getting a doctorate opportunity, and I was at the University of Illinois. I left that after a year because I realized I loved working with people. I also had a lot more tattoos and played a lot more Call of Duty than the other PhD students. So I did what I wanted to do, and I came back and really took all my passion and desire to educate and mentor, and really was able to find a position with a company that allowed me to really spread my wings and do it. In the bio in the beginning, like you brought up my partnership with IDEA. I also oversee the personal training track for club industry. So, I mean, through and through, I am a personal trainer, and I'm here to really guide and to mentor and to preach to all of you all that's possible right now, especially in this space. So first things first, on the career path of the trainer, I don't even know how many calls on a daily and weekly basis about, I can't get trainers to come back to my gym in this brick and mortar that everyone's been talking about on here. And the fact of the matter is the shutdowns, a lot of trainers are like, shit, I'm going to cut out the middleman and I'm going to go do this on my own. My fear with this is exactly what that first bullet says is that a direct career path for what you want? So the very first thing that I say to every single one of you on there, and I encourage you to just jot this down, is you need to be able to answer if I were to reach out to any of you, but what do you want? What does your career path look like? And is what you're doing right now influencing how you're going to get there? As I shared all that ridiculous amounts of education and all the fails and all the excitement that went on in my career, I knew that everything that I was doing was essentially a step A to a step B to a step C to get to where I wanted to be. So that's very, very first thing. The second thing, what I can tell you is understanding your audience and how and where that's going to align for you. So whether it is you doing it on your own, maybe you have a hybrid model where you're doing outdoor boot camp things plus a virtual experience. I know the West Coast, most people are doing the outdoor with the hybrid trainer through the virtual platform. I think it's a phenomenal program. I mean, finally here in Jersey, it's 68 degrees. So I can imagine there's going to be a lot of people outside. But once again, that's an important thing that you have to take into consideration. What I'm getting at is, don't pigeonhole yourself to say, this is what I have to be doing. You need to think of everything as you're creating a business plan as a fitness professional. Here's this bucket. Does what I'm doing fit into this bucket? The second thing is, does it bring you joy? As trainers, I often hear, training, it's just so redundant. I get so bored, or, I just have this one client. You have a choice, okay? You have an expertise that you're able to deliver to people. Own that. I'm not saying to go fire your clients, but trust me, I've had clients that I've fired who haven't been able to give it back to me in the same exact way that I've given it to them. So just be smart in what you're doing. So that's sort of that career path sort of bucket I'm going to talk on. This next piece from earnings, I think, is really incredible because the old school training facility was, you're training here, we have a non-compete, we own you type of thing. It's a thing of the past. We need sort of this hybrid model, also not just virtual in person, but we need a hybrid model as far as the personal trainers. I can speak to the club that I'm building right now, where, our part-time trainer, you just have to commit minimum to 10 training sessions per week. because we want there to be some camaraderie. We want you to learn about our brand and feel an affinity to what it is that we're doing. We're also looking at, most clubs and a lot of people in my network we're looking at paying trainers more money so that you feel as though you're comfortable to put food on the table. I know once again, in my experience, when you're paying somebody $10 an hour to work the floor, to sign people up, how the hell am I going to pay my bills, my car, my student loans, take my girlfriend to dinner, whatever it might be? It makes it very, very difficult. But by being able to look at things like stipends, or being able to say, hey, look, we're going to give you a base now, and then you can build on top of that. Trust me, it's a thing that's going to be coming, because the boxes of the world, the studios of the world, they need people like all of you out there right now to be able to be that person for them. So I can assure you it is there. The big sort of elephant in the room that most businesses talk about are the benefits. At one point we get off our parents' benefits. I remember for me, that was something that was very important, is more and more operators will start to have that. Last but not least, as far as the tomorrow's trainer, and I'm trying to be as efficient as possible with my time, which is the more that you invest in what you're doing, the better you're going to become. I can assure you that some of you are probably just scratching the surface in the way that you're able to deliver a killer virtual session. But I bet your in-person sessions are freaking awesome. I don't care if you're like, Matt, well, I've been doing it for a year. We're going to hit towards the end of this conversation some sort of tips and tricks that you can utilize to enhance that experience that you're delivering. But it takes time, okay? What you're doing, and this is what I want to sort of pitch to you, and we can kick to the next slide, but I want you to start thinking of yourself as a business. Whether you're working for somebody else or only working for yourself, please, every single day, you need to have a plan that you're going to follow. I want you to focus on telling your day what you're going to do. So if you ever looked at my calendar, from the time that I start working at 8 a.m. till the time that I shut down at 4:30 when my wife gets done, I have a 17-month-old, so I follow a strict schedule, but I have what I'm doing. So I know my first hour is always my plan of attack. My next one is when I start taking meetings, but I have space filled through the entire day. I never let my day dictate what I'm doing. I always have my schedule tell me what I'm going to do for max effectiveness and max efficiency. The last piece, and the most important piece, is do an AAR, an after action report. So I write down, Matt, how well did I perform today? Where did I feel that I got sucked into social media? Did Clint end up calling me and we got talking about our families for 20 minutes? Did you get caught up in an article? Did you answer a phone call that you shouldn't have and then you got off track? I grade myself on a daily basis how well I performed, so that I'm always constantly trying to improve. It's little tidbits like that, like those behaviors that you can build into what you're doing, that when you invest here, it's going to only ultimately be able to invest in all of your clients as well. All right. So Derek, I'll kind of pause there because I hit on a bunch of stuff. If Clint, I mean, you're a coach on here too. You've seen a lot. Is there anything that you'd like to add before we kind of switch just to a little bit of this biz model?
I was about to pipe in and just be like, I love your reference to the AAR. Honestly, I think it's awesome. And we can't expect to grow a community, members, clients, and be their leading source if we don't first hold ourselves accountable, right? And it doesn't mean we have to be perfect, but we got to look in the mirror, and we got to make some adjustments in order to be in a leadership role, in order to grow our businesses. Whether that's in someone else's brick and mortar or it's your own. I would say particularly if it's your own, if you're going to grow a community around it, they're going to be looking to you as that center force.
For sure. Well said, Clint. I appreciate the chime in.
Agreed. Yeah, no, I mean, maybe talk a little bit just about like, what are the business models? What are you seeing out there? How are you setting things up?
I mean, I'll be honest, most club operators are like, what the hell are we supposed to do right now? I mean, I can speak to an organization at one point that I had worked for. They had 4 tier levels of trainers. So we'll say their top 3 and 4 trainers were sort of like their best ones. They lost 80% of them after the shutdown. So these are your trainers from like an EFT standpoint that were doing like 10, 15, 20 grand a month in personal training and then ended up leaving. And, I hope they're off on their own and being very, very successful, right. But it was a big challenge, right? So from a brick and mortar standpoint, it's becoming more realistic with what we're offering. So this kind of complements the whole membership conversation. But to me, a session is a session, whether it's in person, whether it's virtual, whether it's outside. I'm not one to like change my pricing model. Like especially if I speak to just one-on-one, say I charge $100 a session, right? If I'm giving a one-on-one session through Zoom, it's $100. If you're coming and you're training outside at the playground with me, it's $100. If you're coming in my club, it's $100. It all obviously depends on what your club rules and things like that. But I know so many people jumped to try to decrease their prices, whether it's like, oh, well, Apple's offering their app for $7 or whatever the heck it is, and all these other different things. Well, guess what? That's not one-on-one personal training with a fitness professional who's certified, credentialed, and offering you more than just what a generic workout is. I think that's really important when you think of all that comes from a benefits when working with you standpoint. You need to be able to say that loud and clear.
Yeah, that's an interesting. Sorry.
Please.
No, I was just going to say that's an interesting insight in the sense that largely due to COVID, it's almost like everyone was forced online to some degree, right? Almost as an afterthought. And, you know, at Xer, we jumped in on tons of those classes. I've literally sat through probably 100 or more, right, over the last few months, starting in June, really. But the goal really should be to charge the same no matter what, which also sort of implies thinking through like what level of virtual experience you want to design, right? And I am seeing that. That's obviously the reason this webinar was kind of inspired was the time is now to kind of not be reactive, to start to think about that as on equal footing. And I don't know if you're seeing the same thing.
I mean, I think that there's a lot of depth to go in virtual. I still think it's going to be like an 80-20 in person to virtual, but you have to be really great at that 20. So kind of talking about this like membership, whenever I would enroll a client with me, you know, say they commit to 3 times a week with me, they might have 3 in-person sessions with me, but I'm their trainer every single day. So, you know, every Sunday I would write my newsletter so that it would go out 8 a.m. Monday morning to my entire group of people. Anybody who might have trained with me and fell off or was a prospect but didn't enroll, I had a second newsletter that would go out specifically to them. And it was always filled with deposits. It wasn't always going for the home run of come sign up with me, where are you? But it was like, hey, here's a nice little fitness tip. Here's a behavior tip. Here's a nutrition nugget for you. You know, what I think is so great about virtual is if you're leading virtual sessions, you can invite those people in. So like, you know, when I jumped in with the Xer team, you know, because I'm not part of the Xer team, by the way, I'm friends with them, you know, but I went in as just somebody who was a sort of, you know, a consumer to be able to check it out. And it was like, this is fun. This doesn't just feel like another, because I came on and my exact words to Clint were, dude, I can't do another virtual session. And he's like, dude, I'm telling you, you got to try it out. I really, really need your feedback. And I went and it made me feel different. This isn't just a plug for Xer, but what it's a plug for is the experience that it delivered. You know, the high fives, being able to watch everybody, the gamification of the point system, how it integrated with other apps that I was using. It made it fun. You know, we'll talk about like using something like a breakout room as an example, as like a fun little tangent that you can take. Other people aren't doing that. And what happens is it all leads back to sort of that business model for yourself as a personal trainer that I talked about on that last slide. So there's a lot of fun to be had out there in this space. I mean, if you can't tell by my enthusiasm, I could honestly go on forever, but that's really what my take is and what I'm seeing just across really the industry, whether it's for the solopreneur, whether it's for the studio trainer, if it's somebody at a box gym.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think it's a really exciting time. I think virtual opens up a little bit of an extra leg for the folks that it makes sense for. And I really like what you said about kind of customizing your path, right? Like build your custom, you know, the stuff that makes sense for you and that really resonates with you. And I think a lot of people will see success there. We're going to
real quick is super, very, very quick, but like I heard so many trainers go, oh, well, I have to do virtual now. Do you?
Right.
You know, like,
I agree.
It's you know, like the number one, so I've run like a mentorship program for the past like 4 or 5 years where we always just get on trainers and it's always about feedback, just roundtable stuff. And the one thing that people always say is it's like, well, I have to do this. I have to do this. No, you don't. You need to do what you think is going to be best for you to be able to, you know, serve your clients. Because it's a grind. It's not easy whatsoever. But where most trainers say it, and you know, I'm sure people wrote this down and circled it 7 times by now, but it's about your career path and your personal trainer fitness professional plan.
Yeah, very much agree. Okay, so we are going to kick a poll out and survey you guys a little bit on if you're using virtual, what platforms you're using. Obviously, there are quite a few options. As I just mentioned, I've sat through probably 100 or more virtual group workout sessions, so I've kind of seen them all. But let us know, and with that, I'm going to move and hand it to Zaw, and Zaw being kind of our software guy. I'm going to talk a little bit about really what his path, I guess, on some level. You know, I think how we ended up at Exer, but what he saw in the industry, the way that software has evolved for you guys out there in the fitness world. Zaw, you want to share some thoughts?
Absolutely. Well, this slide is boring, so I'm going to talk to it a little bit, but I'm more just going to talk to my experience as a tech entrepreneur and investor, and then as a consumer of everything that y'all are doing. So just quick background so you kind of know what I'm talking about. You know, Derek and I actually went to Stanford together way back in the late 90s. And that's when I got my start very early in the search sector, working with and building some of the first search companies. Then was lucky enough to do that in social networking back in the early 2000s. Then in mobile, as was kind of mentioned in my bio most recently, started an investment fund, investing in early stage tech companies. You know, about, what is it now? About 250 million under management there that we invest in the tech companies. And as Clint alluded to early on, that was what led me on this journey to Exer. I've been an athlete my whole life, nothing to the level of the folks on the call here. But I'd always been super interested in fitness. And this is probably everyone on this webinar's worst nightmare, but got my wife a Peloton for Christmas. This was Christmas of 2017. And there was just something really interesting about this connected fitness environment. I know the class, I was never taking live classes. They were only on demand. And sure, I would work harder in a Soul Cycle if I was actually in there, or in a spin class, you know, but having that experience was something that was super interesting. You know, as Clint mentioned, we went and met Maddie and a bunch of other people in the industry. I was probably a club owner's worst nightmare because I was hopping between MMA gyms, Rumble, Orange Theory, F45, Barry's, trying them all out, you know, because I was interested. I didn't do ClassPass, so unless there's any ClassPass people on the call, and I just signed up for all these classes and would try them all. And what was really interesting to me was, you know, this experience was, you know, was something that I felt like I wanted to be able to have that both in person, like there was no substitute for that in-person sort of training. But I thought there was an opportunity for when someone was working out by themselves, because you can't go to a Barry's every single day, or you can't go to club maybe every single day. How do you actually get that same kind of experiences home? And we went out and surveyed thousands of consumers, thousands of fit pros. And at least from the consumer standpoint, and that's where I think about the user perspective, that's what we found, which was consumers are always asking, I don't know if I'm doing this right. That was number one, when they're working out by themselves. Number two was, how can I make this more interactive and fun? How can I make it feel like I'm part of a community? And so that was the journey that led us to start Exer and to get into this whole world. Now, obviously in the pandemic, all sorts of stuff have changed. And so as Derek mentioned, there's all sorts of different options for people to use. And it just, the poll went away, but looking at the poll, the majority of you are using Zoom or Facebook Live. And there are other options out there. There are a lot of companies that are trying to build fitness specific tech options for hosting virtual classes, managing a virtual community, putting all these different things together. Oh, there you go. Someone just popped it right back up. Mindbody live stream. I like it. There's only one person. Never mind. It's okay. And so what we set out to do from the Xer perspective, and you can see Xer Studio out here, was not to go be that replacement for Zoom or Facebook Live or any of the CRM solutions. It was to take what we do really well, which is artificial intelligence, and to take that to help augment the coach experience so that you can handle a class of 40 people instead of maybe usually a class of 10 or 20 people. I'd actually be interested in how big your virtual classes typically are. But both as, for Clint coaching these classes, for me, kind of in some cases, co-coaching, in most cases, taking, it's really hard as a coach to be interactive, engaging on Zoom, demo the workout, do the movements, handle the music, all this other stuff that we're talking about, and have that same level of community and interactivity with your community. And that's what led us down this path to build this app on top of our channel. And, obviously you're welcome to learn more. This webinar is not just about that, but we are so passionate about kind of where we're going with it, that I think it's something that for any of you, it's something worth checking out. So with that, I know we only have like 7 minutes left, so I want to leave some time for questions and some tips.
Yeah.
So pop it back to Derek.
Yeah, sure. We have a whole bunch, so everyone obviously can get their hands on the slides, but obviously everyone here has got kind of a lot of experience with like virtual workout experiences. I thought it'd be fun for us to kind of pick and choose a few to highlight that we really like. And these were meant to be accessible, like stuff you can start doing like tomorrow, and I know the big one for me, and I've been harping on this lately, is using a mic, right? Like we're running a webinar right now and we all have earphones in, and it doesn't have to be, Apple AirPods, but it makes such a difference. I've seen a handful of classes out there where the instructor isn't using a mic and being 8 to 10 feet away from their computer, sort of yelling at the laptop. And that really, the difference is just so tangible and you almost notice it right away.
I can add real quick to share.
Jump
So
right in.
before we even jumped on for our pre-call, right? So we're in the webinar. I'm not even training, but let me unhook this. You can see I dampened my background. I got my ring light. Yeah. So, I'm all windows. So that's not going to look good for anybody.
Right.
And don't worry, nobody can see the baby pack and play in the background. But I made sure that I came in to test to make sure that my audio was going to end up being there. I'm on noise cancellation in these, which is really nice. So I don't have the dog barking or my wife in the background. So it allows me to really stay engaged the entire time. That's the most difficult thing for the trainers to do, is to stay engaged, because when you're right in front of somebody, you don't have the option to not be right there and be engaged. Because trust me, if you touch your cell phone and you're in face to face with somebody, Matt will somehow jump on your shoulder and smack you in the face, because that's not what you should ever be doing. So, and then I'm going to jump in real quick because I kind of use mic and good lighting. Getting in early is going to be one of the other ones that I just want to push to everybody is, just like your clients, like, you always want to end on time for when that next person is going to get here. It's a grind. I've had to train 8, 10, 12 sessions in a row without taking bathroom breaks, food breaks, whatever else. Guess what? You did that to yourself with your schedule. Going back to my point about you plan your day, later on in my career as a trainer, I would never book more than 3 sessions in a row. For one, because I knew I needed to fuel myself, but 2, once I got to that 4th person, I know that I was delivering a session that wasn't going to be as strong if I was able to refresh myself. So. Yeah,
I like that. Getting in early is really critical. I will say, having seen so many classes, these little things, they make a massive difference. Literally just those 3 things, which you could probably start doing tomorrow. Think about your lighting, think about your audio, and get there early. It makes you stand out.
So simple.
Yeah, Clint.
Right? Yeah. It's so simple. It's like we don't, I tend to look at things right away and then take it to the most complex area and the most expensive things to go buy. This was $8.99 off Amazon. I can put it in, I actually can't put it in. I don't have the company name, but I will find it. And I have 2 of these that go behind an extra monitor that I also believe got on Amazon, so that I can see who I'm coaching better, or the metrics that are running in real time better, so I can be more engaged. I'm not doing this. You guys would hate me if I did this, Mel, right? So
multi-device.
Multi-device.
We're starting to get into the pro stuff. Yeah.
And why not? Let's jump into that, because I just feel that there's a lot of simple ways that we can dumb this down to make your presentation, in your session be way more interactive and way more useful. And, Derek, please hit on anything more that you want to hit on here. But there is a question in the chat about, shall I have a very general answer to this, but I think it's Leanne who's like, should I open a gym now or should I wait till the vaccinations? And, this doesn't, I'm not going to go, political or anything like that. Obviously, geographically, it's going to be different answer for everybody. However, I would offer my 2 cents is, if you've gotten anything from this webinar, is why wait? Start now. That doesn't mean go buy the most expensive place or the cheapest to make it work. It means you have all these little pro tips that you're seeing, and you'll have the slide deck to start to create a community virtually and outside and grind that way. And I'll tell you, most trainers, and Matt, I'm not going to speak for you, but I will speak for myself. When I opened up my gym that was successful, because I've had many failures, the one that was successful, I got going off of a Saturday, Sunday boot camp class where it was bring your friend, to meet the community. And the community was so cool that it just kept growing. Next thing you knew, I needed the space and I could hedge. So the word I would tell Leanne is hedge. You can start virtually, you can go outside, make the personal interaction, and you can hedge that bet for later in the year when you're ready to go brick and mortar, if that's your passion. Because it needs to be the passion if you're going to do it, but you'll do it the right way. There's just not a quick way. It's full of purpose and passion all the way.
Yeah, fair point. I want to be conscious of time. Is there any of these other sort of pro style tips that really jump out as like walk away and consider this strongly for you guys?
I just want to touch social interactions. Because you're losing it if you're virtual only. Like I saw somebody in the chat just dropped that they're staying virtual only. I think meet and greets are great. I mean, even if it's right now, I mean, dependent upon where you are, once again, I mean, and people's comfort, I totally understand. But I think pulling people together, like that's huge. So the one thing we're building.
I was just going to say, I would add to that. I've seen a few coaches who will do that virtually as well, right? They'll have Friday happy hour. Yeah, pull the group together and not work out.
One of the coaches that worked at City Fitness when I was there in Philadelphia, she would hold a trivia night every Thursday. And I mean, I think she had like 80-90% of her clients show up for it, which I thought was really cool.
Really cool.
Sometimes theme nights. So like, I know one trainer, they did a cooking thing. They sent out to all their clients, like, hey, these are the ingredients we're all going to cook. So everybody, of course, has their computer. So then it was like, all right, hey, we're going to do, I don't know, chicken enchiladas.
Yeah.
But that's a huge thing, Maddie. Just that suggestion right there. It's not just the cooking, it's healthy recipes. Maybe it's one of you coaches out there has an amazing, spouse or boyfriend or girlfriend, or it's you that just, your nutrition. Yeah. Lean into it because you can make that virtual by doing the get-togethers, do the recipes, cook. I mean, that builds. So, but you pick what you love. Don't be put, like Matt, you said it perfectly. Don't get put in a box with all this. These are opportunities, and you pick the ones that are purposeful for you. And if it's a hard bet, then you continue to get on these webinars and listen to some of these webinars, and you'll carve your way into what that purpose is.
Just before we jump into Q&A, I do want to highlight, since we had a pretty strong Zoom showing, I think folks are using Zoom, and if you're not using breakout rooms during these workouts, group workouts as a caveat, we've seen that work really, really well. It's a really cool dynamic. It kind of pits groups against one another. You can do some really fun social stuff that makes it unique, right? And differentiates against the other people using Zoom for these virtual workouts. With that, I want to hand it back, I think, to Josh, and we'll kick into some Q&A.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Derek. Thanks, guys. Let's just open this up to Q&A. Obviously, we got a engaged audience here. They're loving the conversation. Your guys' authentic and passion approach to this has been wonderful. So let's just start out with a few things I've seen here. Let's just go with how does Extra Studio work to make virtual workouts better?
That's a good question. We've basically tuned Studio to be really easy to use, and we've essentially built it so that it adds interactive metrics to these workouts. So it's just using the camera on someone's laptop or mobile device, and it's watching them work out, and it's giving them what we call a motion score. I have actually a video that we can, if you let me share that real quick, I think. Let's do this. Where are we? This is what it looks like. Give you like a 30-second. This coach's name is Maggie. She's running a Facebook Live workout. Obviously on Facebook Live, you can't actually see the other athletes. And so what we're giving them on the right is Extra Studio, and Extra Studio becomes a bit of a dashboard. So the coach, she actually has her laptop set up over there on that little table next to her couch, and she is seeing what we're seeing. So this is kind of real time, how hard everyone's working while they're doing these skater jumps. And there's no sign in. It's just kind of open the app and start working out, both for the coach and for the athletes. So, we think this is more fun. These group virtual workouts have become a little drab, so to speak. So that's what we built to kind of make them a little bit better.
I would just add one thing, which is, obviously during the pandemic and even after, it's been hard to figure out what equipment people have at home. Do they have dumbbells? Do they not? Obviously, you've started to probably, segregate your groups into folks that are doing strength training. I did see a lot of you were doing strength where they do have dumbbells. This also works with that. Some people are just doing band resistance. Maybe it's just, a mat and a water bottle in a lot of cases. One of the things that we set out to do was to make sure that you could use something like this, what Coach Maggie is using there, with no hardware. So it literally just sits on a laptop, iPad, phone next to, whatever, I think, what was Maggie using? Facebook Live, right? Yeah. Or Zoom or any other virtual streaming. So it's super easy to use, super easy to get up and running.
Can I add one more thing to that?
That was to Gina's question, which is that there's no extra hardware required. It's just using the camera in a private way on their laptop, meaning nothing's being sent to the cloud, like to Zoom. Go ahead, Clint. Sorry.
Go ahead. That was it. I just wanted you to answer that there's no wearable attached to it. This is all true artificial intelligence. I think a lot of people tell you they use it, but this is the real, through the camera. No hardware, no wearables. Yeah,
this is my first time seeing chat. What is the software used? Studio's running through the web browser. What else we got? Josh, do you have any other questions?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think actually Matt might have answered this on the Q&A, but one lady had asked, AirPods are just for noise cancellation, and can you recommend a good wireless mic? Matt, maybe you want to just take that so everybody can hear it.
Yeah, I mean, so when we sort of made our pivot, as much as I hate that word, we bought Shure mics off Amazon. It was like a lapel mic. It doesn't break the bank, and it really does the job. But once again, test it before you go live with it. So even if it's like, I don't know, call me, I'll listen to your test, okay? But please don't work with the live client who's paying you a lot of their hard-earned money. But run the tests, same thing, like, like I showed you the setup in my office right now, like check that lighting, all that. It's funny because when you showed that clip, Derek, I found myself immediately being like, come on, don't have your exercise program just written on a piece of paper in the front of the floor. Like, perfect example is like, have a whiteboard, like pop it up so that like, your people can't see you. Like, once again, like we didn't have that there, but like, I would never sit, like I wrote notes for this call today, but I'm not going like, make sure you have a plan. I think that adds to the professionalism of it. One note that I didn't touch on, and this is just me jumping on a soapbox and preaching, but like, just because you're delivering a virtual experience doesn't mean that you are allowed to lessen the professionalism that goes with it. So like, yes, you're not right there, but like being there on time, your hygiene and being well kept, I think is very, very important. You know, people do consider that. The other important thing is that retention starts as you begin your training session with that person or even meeting that client. So like what I like about Exer personally when I was there was, yes, I got that recap, but like Clint was the coach for the session. You know, he immediately was like, all right, Maddie, I want to make sure that you're going to be here tomorrow because we're going to be doing X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, bro, I didn't plan on it, but okay. And sure enough, I like jumped on again because I knew that they were going to be running some of these sort of test workouts. So, you know, that's an easy way that you can get people to either uptick the amount of sessions that they're doing or just to make sure that they're coming back.
Perfect. Had a few more coming in here. Actually, there's quite a few. Does Extra Studio work with one-on-one individual training?
One-on-one. To a degree. It's certainly initially, you know, V1 was built for group workouts. We are designing and probably release, I would say next quarter, a bit of a feature adjustment so that it's kind of purpose built for the one-on-one, but we do have coaches who just spin it up, you know, athlete alone, one-on-one session. And what you're getting there is you're getting metrics, right? So you can compare, say, workout last week to workout this week. So I would say yes. You will find there is a leaderboard feature, and obviously that would be a leaderboard of one. But we'll be rolling out some custom features that will fit it a little bit better into some of the niches that we asked you guys about earlier in the webinar.
Okay, great. Here's another one. What types of notes and documentation do you keep on each client that is part of the programming if you are doing it virtually?
I almost
Clint.
want to give that to Matt or Clint.
Clint or me, I don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah, Maddie, why don't you kick it off? I'll fill in if you don't mind.
All right, cool. Couple paths. Do I know the person? Do I not know the person? Right. I don't want anybody jumping into my workouts without me knowing brief exercise history. Right. I need to know like quick things like what category do you put yourself in? Are you an avid exerciser? Are you a moderate exerciser that needs additional direction and support? Or are you somebody who 100% needs the guidance of a fitness professional? Put everybody into those three buckets. From there, I need to know ortho injuries. I like to, if I'm comfortable enough, to ask the person if they're on any sort of medication or anything that would contraindicate what we're doing from an exercise standpoint, because I want to check all those liability things. From there, that allows me to sort of just give them like the 3-minute rundown before I would actually train them. I've turned people away. It's actually happened often. I've turned away doctors who tell me like, oh, I'll just sign the form for myself. And I say, look, no, it doesn't work that way. So I think it's important. It goes to the professionalism thing. Once they're there, I'm reading their bodies in real time. So like, I want to see that, like, I might have 15 people in a Zoom room, but I can quickly hit each person because they should be all doing the same exercises in large group. But I can see like, okay, this person's, ankle's really starting to rotate, or, they're really, really tight through their calves. And I can see that they're pivoting at their waistline. And I'll kind of keep notes to that person at the end. That's where then at the end, I'll breakout room, invite Derek and be like, hey, I really enjoyed that you were here. What's some feedback for me? And on a high note, hit them with some positive feedback and then say, hey, here are some things that I think would be great for us to work on. Another quick tip is always refer to us, we, never not what you need to work on or what I think. It's always a we, our, us. The more that you can get that verbiage into all of your conversations and how you talk to people, it's it's almost like a forecasting close. You're assuming that person's already a client with you. Right. It's something that I preach in workshops that I deliver all the time. Clint, anything on there?
I mean, I would say, I am extra cautious with a more of an empathetic approach when I'm coaching virtually, because I have to err that way. And so what Matt just said is huge. I just chimed in, I was like, huge. It's such an important thing. I'm always going to err on the side of caution with someone. So all those things are great. A quick intake form, just like I mentioned earlier, about how do you feel? Are you stressed? And not just like worded answers, just quick 1 to 3. anyone can do that. You can do that in the Zoom itself. But the breakout, one of the cool things that was on our tips and tricks, if you have dual trainer coaching virtually, and on the onset of a session, you could have a breakout room with one trainer that what you're going to be programmed for that day, more than likely. That trainer is going through quick downline assessments or evaluation or modifications to what the exercises coming are going to be. Whenever I give a difficult movement or a more compounding movement that's going to be a closed chain movement or whatnot, I always provided earlier in the dynamic warm-up or just after a more modified variation of that movement. That's how I program virtually. I don't do that in person because I'm there and I can pivot a little bit. I know, Matt, I hate that word too. I said it, but different context. But however, if I'm in virtual, I'm going to use, I kind of arm myself with my programming in order to do that. So I think it's a great question. I think it's subjective in a way, but I certainly would have a onboarding questionnaire with 3 to 5 quick questions on there that you can see, digest, or the other coach can very quickly, and then make your assessment from there moving forward. And then reiterate when you start the session, hey, listen, let's do you. This is about us working together, but making sure that we stay within the parameters that we've put forth and we've talked about originally.
I'm going to hit just because it's the same thing and it popped up in one of and I threw a answer up there, but it was, how does Matt handle all this background info for a drop-in client for a class? I honestly wouldn't have a drop-in client for a class. I would schedule some sort of 10-minute consultation before I ever allowed anybody to work with me. That's just my MO. That's just how I work. So even now when I've done some side training, is if it was during one of my blocks that I allocated, I would tell them like, look, I have 8 a.m. on Monday. That's the only time I take consultations. They're a 15-minute consultation. Does 8:15, 8:30, or 8:45 work for you? That allows me to sort of take care of that. If you're trying to do something like hey, bring a friend to our virtual class tonight, you can't do that, but you also need to understand that you run risk for yourself. I think it's important that you refer back to the scope of practice under the certification that you have. And I mean, use PFP and other resources to be able to get recommendations as well. I mean, Josh is somebody who can assist.
Yep, perfect. Let's do a couple more here. I think Zal answered kind of one of them, but what does Extra Studio cost?
Yeah, I think it was answered a little bit, but it's free. We're still on kind of V1 in a little bit of a beta phase. So as I mentioned, the V1 is it shines best in a group workout, virtual workout. Something that's probably a hit style or moving around a decent amount because it's tuned towards a motion score. As I also mentioned, we'll be working on some other modes probably that kind of tune it towards Pilates, yoga, strength, stuff like that. So it's free for now, and we'll always have a free tier. And then it'll likely have a monthly subscription fee, a monthly and annual cost for larger groups.
Can I throw Xer on the in front of the bus right now?
Yeah.
What if we invite everybody to a workout that Clint leads when he doesn't have
I was just going to throw that out there.
Stomach issues. And no, like, I think we all jump in. I think, if everybody would like to do that, I mean, Josh, as long as you're cool with it and we can follow up, but we'll maybe pick 2 different times. We'll do like an AM time, a PM time. I know that you're all busy, so 100%. We'll try to do like that 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock window when maybe you're less likely to have clients. But I think that would be really cool. And I mean, even from our standpoint, I think, well, not me, I'm saying I'm so used to using we. I feel a part of the extra team, but to be able to just get some feedback. So
yeah,
no, absolutely.
No, I very much agree. It's a great idea.
There's a lot of people on this call that do virtual and strength as well, and we can coach to that and show you. And those of you that are doing one-on-one, what does that whole dichotomy look like? We can. I'm happy to be accessible to you and go over how I do that for sure.
Perfect. No, I'll go ahead and set that up. Obviously, we have everybody's registration. We can just communicate that to them. Clint, we just need to know when you guys want to make that happen. So maybe there's a couple different time options so people have a little flexibility with it. So, but yeah, great idea. Let's just, and I see a lot of chats. Everybody wants that, loves it. That'd be great. Yes, please. So wonderful idea. On that note, let's just, I know there's still some people on here. I don't know if any of you guys got a hard shut off, but let me ask this last question. Let's see here, what was it? If someone is getting started, which video streaming platform do you feel is the best for group fitness? Just in, I guess, your own experience.
Yeah, I'm certainly happy to hear others. I've seen a whole bunch at this point. My thought is it kind of depends, obviously, just like Maddie was saying, like it really does depend on what you want to accomplish, what kind of class, kind of group interaction, what kind of community. You know, I've probably, like I said, 100 classes is 100 different cultures, right? For real, like every group is different. But I personally, I would say that one of the things Zoom does pretty well compared to the others is the athletes being on video. And so if you want your group on video, I think that's kind of the best tool. But if you, like Maggie, for instance, runs a private Facebook group, but during that workout, it's pretty much just a broadcast on Facebook Live. That totally works for her, right? So if you prefer that it's just kind of you, I think Facebook Live is pretty great. I think I've seen some on Instagram Live. Obviously, they're kind of similar. That's my 2 cents.
Okay. Kind of going into that, I just saw something pop up here. Does the app, obviously, we know it works with Zoom. That was one of the questions, but is there any platforms that I guess it wouldn't work with?
None that I can think of. If you've got one, throw it at us. We'll make it work.
Yeah, let the tech guys do it.
Yeah.
Somebody brought up about seniors in the chat. So you have to know what they have and work with them, but not stress yourself over making sure that you can match what you need to offer to your clientele, right? I've said it probably 4 times now, efficiency and effectiveness. But like, if I'm trying to work with somebody, and a lot of people have Facebook accounts, and you can do a private Facebook because you can video call people. If that's what they have, use video call. I personally, if I was a virtual trainer, I would film myself teaching everybody with like a screen share shot how to either download these applications and then just have it in a library that I could drop to them once they enrolled in my program. So like if someone's like, oh, I really prefer to use Facebook, I could grab that and say, hey, here's how you get set up on Facebook. If it's, hey, I need a Zoom account, I would film me saying, hey, make sure you get a zoom.com. You're going to, create a content, blah, 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 blah. That's smart business practice. So I hope it answers.
I think it's great feedback. And I was surprised. I kind of agree. I mean, when you get to the older populations, it's tough. It's tough to, I think we assume a lot too, that it's just that lift is going to be gigantic. And I was visiting a friend, and his mother's a Pilates instructor, and I'm hearing this noise in the background, and I look, and so I go just past the kitchen, and I look, and she's got, I think she had 70 people over the age of 65 from a community that was shut down due to COVID in Northern Michigan up doing Pilates virtually. Now I listened because what I was hearing was not the class, it was her trying to get everybody on board. And she did it, but she took some techniques, Matt, from what you just suggested in order to get them onboarded, right? And there's a few that didn't. So there's some friction there, but let's not assume that they won't adapt and overcome. They've adapted to a lot throughout their lives. And this is, we all went through some significant stuff in the last year. So not everyone, it's not for everyone, right? And this, it's tools. You pick the right tools for your community for sure. But I was inspired by that moment. So I thought I would share that question.
Great. I know there's a few more things coming in, but I think we need to wrap this up. I can actually share these questions. Sorry for those that we didn't get to, but guys, I just want to thank Matt, Clint, Zaw, Derek for a great webinar. And I mean, as far as everything you guys have put on here, it's just authentic, very informative. The presentation was wonderful, and obviously it shows by the number of people that have stayed with us even beyond the hour. So want to thank you guys for that. And Just also
Appreciate
you.
want to thank everyone for joining the webinar today and for all your questions. I hope you've learned a lot of valuable information that can help you build your hybrid fitness business. As we said, we will definitely get out to everybody the recording here in the next 24 hours. Stay tuned to, hopefully sometime early next week, we can get in touch with Clint and the guys and make sure we set up a test run so you guys can actually see all this live and in person, or not in person, but virtually. With that being said, again, thank you, everyone. You'll see an email tomorrow with the recording. I'm going to talk to Derek about getting the slide deck as well. If they want to share that, I will include that in the email as well. That's going to go out. And thank you all again. Stay safe and healthy and have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.